Today we're going to do a deeper dive into what I would term as the anxious extroverts and the avoidant introverts. I think it's a subject that hasn't been covered enough and it needs deeper investigation. Hi, I'm Amit Sodha, holistic love coach, and let's talk about this. So I have this theory that has kind of been born off a problem that some of my clients had. So these are individuals who are well-grounded individuals. They get into relationships with these people and everything seems to be going very swimmingly. They're getting consistent communication. They're going on regular dates to the point where a couple of these examples have been on holiday together. But round about that 3, 4, 5 month mark, the other person just suddenly cuts things off, literally at the drop of a hat, and they pull away. Why is that? So I was racking my brain. I've been chatting with ChatGPT, trying to figure out where this is coming from and why it happens so suddenly. Because generally speaking, the pattern of avoidance is gradual. It is very noticeable. It's very visceral, but it's gradual. It usually happens over the space of a couple of weeks, maybe even a couple of months. But there's one particular pattern of avoidance where their MO it is that it is very sudden. So why does this happen? And here's my theory on this. So I kind of after having conversations with ChatGPT, something just popped into my head, and I realized that the reason they're cutting off so suddenly is because these avoidants are also introverts, and they're very interlinked, this avoidant introvert dynamic, because they are getting very involved and they get to a point where things are going really well. But however, as an introvert, they suddenly feel that need, that craving to go and get that time away to reset, to recharge. And so the only thing they can do or feel they do or they can do, or their only option at that point, is to literally cut things off so they can then escape and go and get their recharge time that they so desperately needed. Now, from the anxious point of view, or the other person, it may not always be an anxious avoidant who's a kind of an anxious attached person who's attracted this. It could be someone who's got a very secure attachment style, but they've also faced this and they've got someone who's completely ditched them very, very suddenly. So I don't think you as the individual on that side have ever done anything wrong. It can feel that way sometimes, that something has gone awry. Maybe you said something, done something, and that is not always the case. The avoidant has now obviously gone away. They've gone away to reset themselves, and there was nothing that you could have done about it. There was no real signs at the beginning. Everything seemed so good. They were stable, they were consistent, and everything was as it should have been, or as it appeared on the outside. So the question is, what could you have done? And to be honest, the truth is there's not a lot you could have done. But the one thing I would say that you can now do and find out a little bit more about the person to understand whether they're an introvert or an extrovert. Do they have signs where they are needing time away, or they need kind of like, they're not very good in crowds, or they feel more recharged when they're alone? And if so, then that is the only one thing I think you could ever try and discover about this person that may give you this indication. But even then, it's not guaranteed science. It may happen, it may not happen, I don't know. And can you give them reassurance that they can have their space, that you can, they can do whatever they want? If they want to pull away for a little while and need that space, of course you can do all of that. But even then, as an introvert, it can be very, very almost not enough is probably the better way to put it. Even then, they still need that absolute cutoff to be able to recalibrate. If they know you're there waiting for them, even that can be too much pressure for them. Even that can kind of like really weigh on them. And so it's going to be really difficult. There is no real easy answer to this one if you ever find yourself in that situation. There's no easy answer to it, and there's nothing you can do sometimes when these situations arise. But all you could do is put in a couple of safeguards, this one extra safeguard, just finding out if they're an introvert and being able to be okay with the fact that they may need time when they need to completely reset, recalibrate, recharge, re-energize, and that may be the case for them. As long as you've got a secure attachment, you'll probably be okay with it. But if you're someone who's got an anxious attachment style, this can be a very painful thing. It can be a very painful process to go through. But you, as the avoidant, should probably know by now what your pattern is. Are you someone who gets heavily involved very quickly, perhaps to the point, maybe not always so extreme, but it can involve this, where you're breadcrumbing, love bombing, giving false hope, many reassurances that your body can't cash? And if you're doing that, you need to become aware of this behavior, that you're potentially hurting so many people by doing this for the sake of protecting your own space when you need it. And that is not okay. You need to become aware of this pattern and be able to self-regulate early on, not to go in too fast, too strong, to make false promises, to give that impression that everything is going okay when it clearly isn't. And again, I know this is very easy to say, but as the avoidant, if you're watching this, then you need to become aware of your own signs, your own red flags, where you're either going in too fast, too strong, or giving your all in one go, in one big shot over 3, 4, 5 months, and then suddenly pulling away. To the people watching this, if you're getting involved with an avoidant, like you're having your potential doubts, or you're getting sort of signs, or you are getting this niggly feeling that potentially that this could happen, I think it is worth addressing with some open communication and being able to actually actively say what you're feeling in that moment, be able to be okay articulating it. And again, this will give you a lot of insight into the person, the way the information is received, whether they immediately pull away straight away, they feel attacked, etc. Very good indicator that they are an avoidant and they're not going to be able to handle conflict well moving forward. So these are all things to be aware of. You're never going to completely eliminate the risk in love. It's always going to come with some kind of risk. You're always going to potentially find yourself in a situation where something like this can happen. We're never ever fully protected from heartbreak. Unfortunately, there is no cure for that. But all you can do is to mitigate some of this, is have a good understanding of this anxious, avoidant nature within ourselves, or whether someone is secure, how to spot the signs of either, or whether someone is disorganized. Whatever it might be, if you have a good working knowledge of it, and you have a good working knowledge of yourself and what your patterns are and what you tend to do and how you tend to react to these situations, then of course you can act accordingly whenever you find yourself in that situation. And as avoidant, I think the least aware people tend to be the avoidants. They tend to not have any sort of thought towards their own condition and how they behave, their human behavior. And of course, look, I'm not trying to say that you're an evil person. I don't think you do it with the intention of doing it with malice, but I just don't think you've become self-aware enough that you know that this is your pattern and that you can actually now do something about it, interject within yourself to self-regulate, to prevent you from getting too involved too quickly, to mitigate the chances that you're going to pull away at the drop of a hat or gradually ghost that person. I hope this makes sense, and it's just a starting point. It's an area of kind of the attachment theory that I'm looking into a lot at the moment, this kind of anxious introvert versus wrong way around, the avoidant introvert versus the anxious extrovert, and looking at these personality types and how they attract each other and what you can do to stabilize that relationship moving forward. So I hope that makes sense. If you like this, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.